That's my favorite quote from Mike Tyson is, everybody's got a plan until I punch him in the face. So you're trying to be open, to be adaptable, you try to improvise with your client.
Yeah, so I think the concept of improvisation is a very strong one to me. So improvisation does not, for me, mean just to be spontaneous. And it does not mean to just stick to the plan. It's exactly combining these two concepts of structure and chaos, or to have plans and being spontaneous. And if you combine that in a way that you adapt in a situation and having plans, then I think you're really dancing on this edge of innovation.
Do you practice dancing? Being open, what helps you being in this sort of movement in your mind?
For me, improvisation is an essential part of my life in research, in business, and during my daily routine. So I practice around once a week, having our ensemble for improvisation. And in there, we always challenge our minds. So going in new situations, understanding new characters, and being on stage and improvising. And improvising is a challenge and a collaborative, creative performance. So it is challenging in one way, but really satisfying in the other way, because you're creating something out of nothing, and suddenly you think, like, how did that happen? How could we do that? How could we think about that?
Yeah.
But it's here. And I think this is a great training, not only being on stage, but to train your minds to adapt on new circumstances, because that is the challenge we have, I think, in our fast-paced society.
You sound like an athlete, exercising and yeah.
I think that improvisation, like improvisation theater or jazz, is like sports, but it's a creativity sport, if you want, or an agile sport, because you really train your mind. You cannot just do that. It's like if you think you go to a piano and play anything. You can do that, but it won't be the best piece of music that you could have done. So if you train music, sports, improvisation, business, whatsoever, I think this is the first step. And then having a knowledge and a training, then you can improvise. So it's not that you just do anything, but that you perform on the top of your intelligence or training. So based on your knowledge and your training, then you can adapt to situation, and not the other way around.
Always compared to playing or exercising the scales, let's say on the piano, on the flute, because it's really tiring and sometimes boring to exercise your scales up and down. But if you have got the scales pinned down, you can actually improvise. Yeah, you can actually play jazz.
But that would be the wrong way of training. So if you train just like in a bored way and you just do something, then you do not learn as much as if you challenge you. Like Csikszentmihalyi said, you have to be in the flow. You have to challenge yourself. And people who are really good in these kind of trainings, they always challenge them, trying something new, that they're not bored. Like Michael Phelps, the swimmer, he trains a lot, but he's not bored. He tries always to be a bit more in that way, a bit more in that way, and then you're in this active flow of mind.
So it's kind of, you're setting stretch goals you can somehow achieve. But I think I would imagine this is kind of difficult to set goals that are not too far away and that you can actually reach and are not too easy, so something in between.
Yes, so I sometimes have the metaphor of playing frisbee. So you can think of that if we play frisbee and I shoot the frisbee exactly to you, after some minutes you're bored. But if I take the frisbee and throw it somewhere else, you're frustrated because you can't catch a frisbee there.
Yeah.
But if I throw a frisbee exactly there, a little bit out of your comfort zone, and you have to stretch that you can get the frisbee, but it's hard, and you get that, but not always, then this is exactly the metaphor for reaching goals that are realistic but ambitious. And that's the way I think how you can challenge yourself in a beneficial way.
So who throws your frisbees for you?
Many people. So I could think of these different areas. Like in research, I often have the challenge with other researchers saying like, oh, let's try to publish in this journal, or let's try this kind of method. And it's like, okay, that's different. So I don't know how it exactly happened or how we can do that. And that's exactly this frisbee that I got. Or in arts, we always challenge ourselves. So we try every 2 weeks something new, some new aspects, saying, okay, this is what we can do. What little other thing could we include here? And in business, there's always the frisbee coming from the company. Like, so here's the problem. And sometimes you catch the frisbee. Sometimes you say, well, we can do it a bit more. And sometimes you say, well, I think that this is a problem that you cannot just, solve in the next month. You need some more months or years.
What's your favorite problem? Something that set you up for later success in your life?
I think one of the big problems are these combinations. So sometimes I combine like science and business, and I think that's great. I mean, that's really a new approach, and it helps. And oftentimes I have the problem that I use scientific methods in a business context, and they have no clue what I mean. Or I understand something in a business context and say, oh, we can use that in research. And then I found out, well, you can't do this kind of research in here. So one of my problems, for example, are in the sphere of agility, resilience, and improvisation. So many organizations have to transform to be more agile or more resilient. And the question is, how can you do that? Because theoretically, you can understand it, some parts of that, but in practice it looks very different. And sometimes in some companies, it seems to be easy to include or implement some methods, for example, but then from a theoretical point of view, it's really complex to understand this complex socio-technical system that we're trying to understand.
Do you have an example you could share with us?
So we were working with an organization that is very hierarchical, and they said we want to foster our informal knowledge exchange. So how can you do that? And my first approach was, well, it's easy, because just look behind the scenes, behind the organizational chart, and I explain you about social network analysis and how the mechanics works and who talks to whom, and it's, from a bird's eye view, it's, I thought, easy to understand. But then we went to the organization, and there were like thousands of people with a clear structure, and that's a big structural change if we just use another web-based tool or a different approach here. So we cannot just change that. We really have to think for a long run, for the next 5 years, how we can achieve little tasks to solve a bigger problem.